Sri Aurobindo Darashan, reading the impressions of SRINIVAS Iyengar ji. The queue was being formed at last. It was about 2 in the afternoon. It was a bright day in Pondicherry, and it was a great day for Pondicherry. The queue was forming, and though the endless line of pilgrims hardly seemed to move, it actually did move on. The coil curved upwards towards the library and reading room and curved downwards, emerging into the garden, followed for a little while a straight course, soon turning sharply towards the meditation hall. It moved on like an impossibly long centipede, enveloping the pillars, scaling the stairs, now in one direction, now in another, and at last reaching the very hall, the very spot. The queue was long, with its cusps and crests, links and breaks, its ascents and descents. It swayed and moved. It stopped and moved and swayed, and a hushed expectancy filled the pores and cells of the human frame and even the very chambers of the obscure human heart. How patiently they awaited their proper chance. How statuesque many of them stood, their eyes avoiding the midday glare of the sun, their fingers firmly clasping the tulsi garland, or the fair white flower, or the bright red rose. They waited and they moved. They moved and they prayed. I cannot believe. I want to believe. I must believe. I will believe. Let me believe. Thus, even the agnostic prayed, and hope and despair warred in his bosom, and he held the garland in a yet firmer grasp. The last turn was taken. One's eyes grazed over the intervening pilgrims and rested on the two figures seated together in unblenched majesty and aura serene, the mother and Sri Aurobindo. The great moment had come. The presence was a flood of light and truth, and the mere mind staggered under the blow. The mere human frame lurched forward mechanically, but the eyes were held irretrievably in a hypnotic spell. Thought was impossible then. The mind had abdicated its sovereignty for the nuns, and one, dare one say it, had become almost a living soul. The crowning moment of all, one faced the mother, one faced the master. It was impossible to stand the smile. It was impossible to stand the penetrating scrutiny of those piercing eyes. A second or two, perhaps no more. But how can one take count of the fleeting units of time? One rather glimpsed then the splendorous truth. There shall be no more time. Eternity was implicated in a grain of time. One all but crossed the boundaries of space and time. One experienced a sudden upsurge of glory that was nevertheless grounded on a bottomless humility. And But already one was out of the room. The pulses of life started beating once again. The wires, the machinery of the mind were resuming their work once more. The feet knew whither they should go. The heart was agog still with the agitations of the hour. And one returned to one's room to gather, to piece together the 1,001 fancies, the 1,001 aspirations that had welled up in prodigious exuberance during that one great moment of timeless time. One grew quieter, serener. One registered a feeling of singular, inexpressible fulfillment. One was abnormally calm, but one was also radiantly, almost divinely happy. The presence that thus flooded my storm-tossed soul and chastened it with the gift of grace bore little resemblance to the published photographs, and even less to one's deliberate mental imaginings. And yet, how can I account for it? It was a truly familiar face. Where had I seen the master before? I had seen him ever so often. Yet where? The mind raced through the dizzy corridors of 35 years of terrestrial life. Where? Oh, where had I seen his face before? Was it the face of Zeus that had once held me enraptured as I chanced upon it in a book of mythology? Or was it rather the face of Aeschylus? Perhaps Vasishtha looked even like this when he blessed Dasharath's son. And it was thus, perhaps, that Valmiki sat when the whole of Ramayana, to the minutest particularity, shaped itself before his wise and lustrous eyes. And the vision of the mother and of the master, were they in very truth the cosmic Mahalakshmi and the all-highest Ishvara? The vision remained. The experience persisted. The memory of the smile eased. Yet the multitudinous pricks of the workaday world and the memory of the Brahmatej, austere yet inconceivably beautiful, that was resplendent on Sri Aurobindo's face, yet gave one the hope and the strength to bear the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world. Nay, gave one even the strength to aspire to change it all and boldly to nurture the incipient hope that even the frailest and the foulest clay can evolve. However long the journey and arduous the path into the supermanhood of the Gnostic being and the triune glory of Satchidananda. Mother India, August 1969, pages 492 to 95. The first impressions of Sri Aurobindo's Darshan by AMALKIRAN. My first Darshan day was approaching. It was the 21st of February 1928, the mother's birthday. People were not very encouraging at that time. They left me in doubt whether I would be able to attend the darshan or not. Up to almost the last minute, I didn't know my fate. I had to go and scrutinize the list of names put up. At last I found my name. Good, I said. I'm lucky to be allowed. Later, I took my place in the queue. Of course, in those days, the queue was a small one. I think there were only 40 people staying in the ashram and perhaps as many visitors. The darshan used to be in the long front room upstairs. I went in my turn, first, of course, to the mother, because Sri Aurobindo I did not know, while the mother I had seen again and again. I knelt down at her feet. She blessed me. Then I went to Sri Aurobindo's feet and looked at him. My physical mind came right to the front. What sort of a person is Sri Aurobindo? How does he look? I saw him sitting very grandly, with an aquiline nose, smallish eyes, fine moustaches and a thin beard. I was examining him thoroughly. At length, I made my pranam. He put both his hands on my head. That was his way, a most delightful way, with his very soft palms. I took my leave, looking at him again. The next day I met the mother and asked her, Mother, did Sri Aurobindo say anything about me? She answered, Well, he just said that you had a good face. Light and laughter. Some talks at Pondicherry by AMALKIRAN and Nirodbaran. Talk 1, delivered by Amal on August 26, 1970, page 14. Someone asked him, Would you describe your first darshan with Sri Aurobindo and the mother? What experiences did you have with them? AMALKIRAN says, The first darshan with the mother, I had the impression of a radiance all around her. When I first saw Sri Aurobindo, I had the sense of something leonine, as well as a mountainous calm. He leaned forward and blessed me with both his hands about my head. The mother kept smiling all the time as if to set me at ease in the presence of Sri Aurobindo. My turn to go to them was to follow an American couple that I overheard discussing whom to bow to first. They solved the problem by bowing between them. This way they touched the feet of neither, but had the rare experience of being blessed by both of them at the same time. Sri Aurobindo had a soft, very soft voice, I am told, but I never heard him speak. The Golden Path, interviews with disciples of Sri Aurobindo and the mother from the Sri Aurobindo Ashram and Auroville by Anie Nunnally, published by East West Cultural Center, California, 2004, pages 11 and 12. First impressions of Nolini Kanta Gupta. It was during my stay at the gardens that I had my first meeting and interview with Sri Aurobindo. Byron had asked me to go and see him, saying that Sri Aurobindo would be coming to see the gardens and that I should fetch him. Maniktala was, in those days, at the far end of North Calcutta, and Sri Aurobindo lived with Raja Shubod Mullik near Wellington Square in the South Calcutta area. I went by train, and it was about 4 in the afternoon when I reached there. I asked the doorman at the gate to send word to Mr. Ghosh. This was how he used to be called in those days at the place, saying that I had come from Barin of the Maniktala Gardens As I sat waiting in one of the rooms downstairs, Sri Aurobindo came down, stood near me, and gave me an inquiring look. I said in Bengali, "Barin has sent me. Would it be possible for you to come to the gardens with me now?" He answered very slowly, pausing on each syllable separately. It seemed he had not yet got used to speaking Bengali, and said, "Go and tell Barin, I have not yet had my lunch. It will not be possible to go today." So that was that. I did not say a word, did my namaskar, and came away. This was my first happy meeting with him, my first darshan and interview. Reminiscences by Nolini, Kanta, Gupta and Amrita, published by Mother India, 1969, pages 16 and 17. Champaklalji's impressions. You once asked me what were my impressions when I first met Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Well, it is difficult to describe them. But I remember this much, that I felt I was in the presence of Shiva when I saw Sri Aurobindo. When I saw the mother, I felt an extraordinary closeness to her and saw in her an embodiment of beauty. Now, after all these years of stay with them, the total impact on me is this. Sri Aurobindo is a living example of complete surrender. The mother is a living example of perfect service to the Lord. Champaklal Speaks, edited by M.P. Pandit, revised by Roshan, published by Sri Aurobindo Ashram, 2002, page 39. Impressions of Temiben. A question is being asked to her. Would you describe your first darshan with Mother and Sri Aurobindo, or share any of the darshan experiences you had with them? Temiben says, I saw the mother twice a day. She used to give darshan in the mornings in the meditation hall. In the evenings, we would go up for darshan to the top of the staircase. I remember my first darshan of the mother. I saw her sitting at the top of the stairs wearing the most exquisitely beautiful blue sari. Her eyes were something indescribable. I was overwhelmed by the experience. She took us over immediately. Sri Aurobindo's power was quite different. I saw him only when he gave darshans 4 times a year. We passed by him one by one very quickly, but he transferred so much force into each of us in such a short amount of time. I remember one April darshan in the afternoon, sitting in the courtyard waiting to go upstairs. I could feel palpably the entire courtyard rocking back and forth from the amount of force emanating from his presence. This is one of the reasons children were not allowed in the ashram until a certain age. The force was too strong. They would often fall ill. During my first darshan, as I was approaching the inner room, when I reached the door, I could feel 2 rays of light entering my chest. I was still standing at the door when I felt this. When I stood in front of Sri Aurobindo, it was as though I was in a trance, and I walked away still in that state. Once, however, I was talking to the mother, Prior to a darshan with Sri Aurobindo, I said, Mother, I don't see Sri Aurobindo during the darshans. Of course, I see him physically, but I feel that I don't see him inwardly. The mother said, Yes, it is true. This is very difficult. But Mother, others tell me that they see him. She said, Then perhaps they are only pretending. After that next darshan, I saw Sri Aurobindo in a totally different way. The mother had opened my inner sight and given me the ability to truly see Sri Aurobindo. The Golden Path. Interviews with disciples of Sri Aurobindo and the mother from the Sri Aurobindo Ashram and Auroville by Anie Nunnally, published by East West Cultural Center, California, 2004, pages 71 and 72.